Do you want to know how to discipline a teenager that can't stop making bad choices? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, and education, all through the lens of the principle self-government. In this video, we're talking about habitual bad choices. In this video, we're going to talk about why they are stuck in this rut of continually making bad choices and what you can do structurally in your relationship and in your communications to help them take more responsibility for their choices, maybe be able to see themselves a little clearer, do some self-assessment so that hopefully they can change their outcomes. So let's talk about why teenagers make bad choices. Sometimes it's honestly just because they're not processing with their proper brain function. So the prefrontal cortex is supposed to do all the logical processing. It's growing a lot during that time, but during adolescence, especially puberty years, when the hormones are changing so much, they start doing more functioning actually with the amygdala, which is the emotional center of the brain. They become a little bit more emotional because of their heightened hormone levels. They start to be more snippy, more moody, more whiny, all of those types of things during the teenage years. And this can actually make it so that sometimes, even when they think they are doing the right thing or trying to do the right thing, it actually comes out as an attitude problem. So keep that in mind. I actually remember that as a child. I remember my parents probably just being so used to my attitude problems that they said something one time. I was focusing on being completely calm and being okay with whatever they said. And I said, okay. And I thought that I was being calm and okay. And they were like, you're having an attitude problem with me. And I was like, I wasn't trying to have an attitude problem with you. Let me try to do it again. And maybe they were thinking that was making an excuse, but I remember thinking in my head, really? Did it come out with an attitude before I even said or even thought that I was upset about anything? It can happen, because emotionally they are in that place. Also, impulsivity goes up when we've got a lot more processing happening with the amygdala and we've got the emotions firing higher. They're also seeking a lot of adventure and attention. They're practicing a lot of their social skills with other people. Sometimes they just do dumb things. They're just impulsive. And that can lead to a lot of bad decisions. It's not that they didn't know not to do it. They might even be halfway through it and go, this could actually be one of those things my parents would tell me not to do. But then they're already in, they're invested, they feel like they've got some social skin in the game. And so, and they're really focusing on trying to, develop some autonomy and launch off on their own. And so they just do it anyway. Though they might have thought for a second it might not be a good idea. Are there going to be some dumb choices, some mistakes? Yeah, that is absolutely going to happen during the teen years or the adolescent years. We've got to prepare for that. We've got to not think to ourselves for 1 second that they're going to be perfect. We've got to keep doing the training that they need to communicate effectively so that they don't have all the attitudes, the anger, the rage, the controlling, so they can communicate properly, get understood, but then also so that they know where their boundaries are and so that they are able to follow the instructions they need to, accept the no answers they need to, be able to take personal responsibility for when they do make some of those mistakes. Here are a few other reasons you might want to be mindful about of why sometimes teenagers get into making mistakes or bad decisions again and again, and they need a lot of disciplining. So one thing is they actually might have this absence of purpose. If you have a lack of purpose in your life, you start thinking that nothing really matters. So what if I do that? So what if I do that? What's my purpose anyway? What's the point of it all? You often hear teenagers say statements like that. So keep that in mind. We do need to be filling our lives with purpose, and that's at all ages, even during the teen years. So sometimes we start focusing on money, activities, assignments. None of those things are purpose. None of them our purpose. Purpose comes from relationships. And what if their relationships aren't working? What if boys don't like them that much, or girls don't like them that much, or whatever? Now, what's the point of all of these things that they're doing then? So that's something that we really need to be mindful of. Obviously, peer pressure is one that can lead to some really bad behaviors and decision making, so keep that in mind. Sometimes you have to teach them how to give their friends no answers, how to keep their boundaries even with them. But here's the thing, is that some people have certain tendencies which make that social pressure even more difficult. So there are 4 tendencies. I've got videos about them here on the channel, so hopefully you get a chance to watch the video of the 4 tendencies, and maybe even the individual videos about the tendencies, because there's a lot of fun stuff there to learn. But one of those tendencies is obliger. And another tendency is rebel. Then there's also upholder, and there's questioner. So the obliger and the rebel, sometimes the questioner, definitely not the upholder. The obliger is going to make decisions to do things to please other people. And so they might make bad choices and have bad behavior and need more discipline because they're just following other people because they're trying to please them, because they want friends and they want people to be happy. The rebel might be doing stuff just because they know it's the wrong thing to do, and they kind of are oriented that way. The questioner could occasionally go off track if they ask themselves a question like, well, why is it such a big deal to, playing video games or whatever it is, or, this little lie is not going to be a big deal. Maybe they're not asking the right questions in their head. They could end up making bad choices as well. I'm a questioner, and I definitely did make quite a few bad decisions consecutively as a young person at one point in my life. So, I was probably asking the wrong questions sometimes. The upholder is the type of person that's going to do what they know is expected of them. They're going to live that duty really strong, and chances are high that they are not going to go off track unless they're being an upholder to a wrong source, such as a friends and that peer pressure. So tendencies can play into why they might choose bad behaviors repeatedly. So what do we do if they're making the bad choices? How do we stop it? Let's talk about that. We need to be open. No manipulative tactics, okay? That's probably one of the worst things that you can do. A lot of people try to help youth overcome their problems, and they go about it in this sneaky, behind the scenes, manipulative, like throwing little comments to try to have them catch little hooks of information out there. Don't do that. Don't do stratagem. Nope. Instead, what you do is you just lay everything out into the open. You bring things into the light. That's the best thing. So what I like to do is have a parent counseling session about the problem. So let's say I've been correcting problems a lot because it seems like this habitual making bad choices. Well, now I'm going to have a parent counseling session. I teach how to do that in my TSG parenting course. You can find that at teachingselfgovernment.com. And I would have this 14-step conversation where I help the child come up with their own solutions to the problem, and we would make sure that they get the opportunity to follow through. We would make sure that there's consequences associated with our solutions that we're coming up with, maybe positive and negative consequences we could be discussing. So then, at this point, we are ready then for the follow-through. We've got the plan. Okay, the plan is probably going to go back to using the 4 basic skills. So if you've already subscribed to this channel, then you know I talk about the 4 basic skills all the time because they are kind of like the basic bare minimum step toward self-government. There are 4 basic skills. They are following instructions, accepting no answers and criticism, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately. In order for a youth to want to live those 4 basic skills, they also need to understand their purpose and their identity. So what is their role? What's the purpose of this relationship? Okay, now I see how these skills will help me. So I've written 11 books, and actually this book here, Roles, The Secret to Family, Business, and Social Success, is a really great book for teens to read. It's a story. You learn through the story. There's this family and they're not getting along very well. The kids aren't helping out. The parents are getting frustrated. They start seeing how people are communicating with each other. The family learns about their roles within the family, okay, their family roles. And once they get that straight, suddenly there's so much more security and they're working together and solving problems so much better. And they also see how these same roles play out in other aspects of their lives, like in the business aspect as well. So anyway, this could be a good one to start with and then start teaching those 4 basic skills. So once your child understands how to accept no answers, follow instructions, accept consequences, and disagree appropriately, now they're ready to be corrected. So how do we correct them? Well, there's a certain process. In fact, there are 5 different teaching styles that I teach parents in my training, and one of them is to do an effective correction. Of course, there's another one for if they go completely like deregulated, right? And in order to bring back in that regulation, sometimes we have to do something called an intensive teaching. Definitely not going to go into that now, but that effective correction is one of the root pieces of a lot of the other teaching styles that we use. So understanding that 7-step process of doing an effective correction is vital. I want to teach you what that process is, but instead of being repetitive here on the channel, I'm going to just point you to my next video, which is called How to Discipline a Child. Go to that video and we'll talk about corrections there.